I don't know. It's itinerary. I think might be.
Always the one button, isn't it? Right, how are we all doing, guys? We okay? I'm not your host for the evening, but I am the events manager of Rough Trade, so thank you for coming. Thank you. I've got a bit of housekeeping to tell you all. So, firstly, I know it's a bit tight in here, but I hope everyone can see in a little way. If you can't, just try and position yourself so people can see, if that works in any way. So the guys are going to come up and do a talk for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to Q&As. I do have a microphone on this side, and I'm going to have a microphone on this side. So when we get to the Q&As, put your hands up. If you're on this side, I'll come find you. If you're close to this side, guys, I would just like to ask people on this side to make a pathway at that point so people can come to the microphone and ask questions. Is that all right? Cool. If you haven't already, could everyone turn their phones to silent, please? You can take photos if you want. We just don't want any funny ringtones going off during the talk. And then at the end of the night, we're going to ask you all to stay here and seated while Tori leaves the building. We're just trying to avoid a big crowd outside the front of the shop at the end. Appreciate everyone would like to do a meet and greet, but we can't do that in these times, I'm afraid. So we're going to keep you in here, let Tori leave, and then we'll let you all out at the end. Is that all right? Yeah. Cool. Now I'm going to introduce to you Fiona Dodwell, who is a freelance journalist and author who recently did an interview with Tori for Music News, and she's going to host the event for you tonight. Enjoy.
Trust me, I'm as excited as you guys are to be here tonight to celebrate the launch of Tori's new album, Ocean to Ocean. We'll be talking with Tori and discussing some of the themes and inspirations behind the new songs, and you guys will get a chance to ask some questions, so get your thinking caps on. But I know you're here to see Tori, so put your hands together and welcome her to the stage. Tori.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you for coming. My goodness. Amazing. I missed you. I'm going to cry. I missed you so much. God, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So it's so great to see everyone here for Tori. And it's actually been a while because of COVID and the pandemic. That's really held things back for you. But how is it feeling to now finally get back to business and get back to doing what you love?
I dreamed of this moment. I dreamed of this moment. Wow, it's been so long. It has though, hasn't it? It's been a long time. I've missed you guys. So I've never experienced this long of a time without doing live shows or having this kind of communication and communion. So it's been a real void. truthfully.
You got us through it.
Oh, well, you got me through it. There's a little fairy who was sending letters to me. So thank you, because those letters I've read them over and over. I had over 100, I think. I can't count, but over and over and over again. So thank you.
Obviously, you've spent so many years in the music industry. But is there any nervousness and tension when you're releasing a new album, or is this something that you're feeling really natural with and you don't really experience that anymore?
Well, what you learn by doing it since 1988. Yes. What you learn is that you can't control how people receive it in the media or in the world. You can't control that, or how your peers receive it. So you have to come to terms with it one way or the other. And the most shocking record that I ever released, the shocking response, because boy, I was really in a bubble. I had no idea people would hate Boys for Pele so much. I had no idea I would really get hatred from journalists, the record company. It was shocking. When Mark he was in the control room with Marcel, and the record label were listening to it, and I had been outside thinking, okay, I'll just let them get into it, and they'll get it. Yeah, they'll get it. And I walked in the control room, and I looked at Mark, and I said, how's it going? And he went, you're not in England anymore.
Why do you think Boys for Pele got that reaction then? What do you think? Do you have an opinion on that now, looking back?
I'd be curious what they think when it's Q&A time, because I'm sure you have a take on this.
It's a masterpiece.
Oh, thank you guys. But at the time,
People didn't realize it at the time.
no, they didn't realize what we were trying to do, and I call it the punk harpsichord record.
Woo!
But they weren't open to it. I think they really wanted me to work with very commercial producers. And they had tried to get me to do that on Under the Pink, but I didn't. I work with people I know. That's how I work. I work with teammates, and usually either it's musicians I've worked with, crew people I've worked with, and then we work as a team, and that's how we collaborate. So they were trying to get me to work with on Under the Pink. I won't mention the names, very, very, very famous commercial producers. And so I rejected that. Well, then the heat got even more for me to do that on Boys for Pele. And I just thought, if I don't break this cycle, I will be having to deal with a man coming in. And that's when I did say, not another mannequin. I'm still waiting for Not Another Mannequin for Justin Timberlake and I'm waiting for the song. But anyway, so that was the idea, Fiona, behind that. I thought, if I don't take the reins as producer, because producer in the music business, your job is you control the money. And whoever controls the money, I began to understand, and I'm not capable of controlling the money, but I knew I could hire somebody who could count, that wouldn't steal from me. But I had to go through a couple of those people before I could find that person. But the point is, long-winded, but I had to understand who held the power. Because if I were in the producer's chair, and then I could choose the engineers and the musicians and captain the record, then I was not subservient to the boys' club.
You stayed in the driving seat.
That's right. But I caught hell for it. But I was punished for it.
But now you own who you are, didn't you? Your music. You've made your own mark by staying in control.
Yes.
Definitely. Ocean to Ocean, much like your other albums, is, I'd say, very deeply personal and autobiographical. Do you feel a sense of exposure and vulnerability in being so open with people? Or does it not really is it so natural to kind of express yourself that way? You're not thinking in those terms.
Are you a different person than when this pandemic started?
Yes.
Kind of.
Me too.
Yeah.
Third way.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some days I'm thinking, I don't know who this person is sitting in this chair anymore, because I don't know how she's going to get out of this chair. How does this happen? I didn't know. Somebody told me tonight their first lockdown was hell because their record, they had an EP out, and their tour got canceled. The EP got stopped, and the band broke up. So people were going through different things at different times, and it was just really understanding what people were going through.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have your own personal favourite track on Ocean to Ocean?
Oh, I have to live with these gals. Oh, I can't. No, for 30 years, I can't do that. No.
Can't do that.
I need them for the next 7 months as we tour. I can't have mutiny.
It's like children between siblings, isn't it? You can't.
Oh my
really
God. No.
I feel like your music over the years has really cut beneath the surface of what it means and what it is to be a woman. And when I think back, looking through history from biblical times and witchcraft, the witchcraft trials, and then our fight to be able to even vote, it feels like there's always been a price that women have had to pay that men have never had to. You know, just for us to stand on an equal footing, there's always been a price for that. Do you think now, looking at society, that we've caught up mostly, or do you think there's a long way to go?
Let's talk to the women from Texas.
Yeah.
That's the shocking thing. You know, just when we think that we're getting a more equitable world for people, from whether it's gender, whether it's religion, whatever it is, race, and then all of a sudden, I've been speaking with our Polish friends and what they're dealing with in Poland, our Texas friends, and you realize that I don't know what it is that is occurring, but I think some of us realize we have to choose a place. I knew I had to choose a frequency that was different than this angry place that I found myself in post-election and early January, when our leaders were acting the way they were acting after the insurrection. And I got so worked up. I got so worked up, I realized I'm gonna explode. So I had to do something different, and the thing I decided to do was sit in a chair and be quiet.
Yeah, there's something to that, though, isn't there?
Yeah, for
Just
4
allowing
weeks.
yourself to be.
Yeah, for like a month.
Yeah.
My husband was thrilled.
Good times for him, was it?
Well, he hadn't had a break from us for it was forever. You know, some people didn't want to be alone, and here he's Greta Garbo. He's there, and Tash and I are there with Oliver, bless Oliver, who we love. But I mean, we're sitting there, really social beings, and so not everybody was in a situation that was easy breezy. It was challenging for some people, and I know some people were alone and they're really social. It's like, no, this is tough.
Yeah, it really affected people. If I recall correctly, back in 2017 with Native Invader and now Ocean to Ocean, you started making albums that ended up being entirely different to what you originally set out to make. Is that correct? There were songs that you had to discard and just totally start with a new project. Is that right? I mean, how difficult was that for you to sort of let go of those songs and think, no, this isn't working?
I think it was difficult because with other artists in the room, whatever your art form, you invest in these relationships with the songs. And it's not as if the muses weren't in those songs, they were, but it was of a time. And I think the Americans in the room will really understand what I was hearing anyway from friends, whereby families weren't talking to each other. There were people I knew that could not speak to other people because they felt like, well, then you're basically saying who I am is unloved, is going to hell, and you hate who I am, is what you're saying. And so these things were, I was trying to reflect that in the music. And at a certain point, I didn't think that these songs, they weren't the rocket ship that would take me out of this divisive place that I found myself in, and I don't know if you all found yourself in, but I didn't want to write music that reflected that.
All right, and how far did you get into? I mean, how many tracks had you actually written? Was there a significant amount of work that
I almost had a complete record.
Really?
Close, yeah.
That must have been very hard to let go of those.
Well, you know, look, there's no plans to release them. It's not trying to be provocative. They're just there, and they were helpful because I wouldn't be where I got without them. And they helped to get me there. And, you know, Kelsey Dobbins is going to try and feed me tequila and make me sing them to her, but we'll see. There's a place maybe for them sometimes, but sometimes songs are just there to get you to your next work. Yeah.
Okay, well, fans have been really excited to hear that Matt Chamberlain and John Evans had joined you to record Ocean to Ocean. Will they be part of the upcoming tour, or do you not know that yet?
Well, the thing about the tour is that we were supposed to be touring October 2020. We were booked, we had all the venues. It's called first holds. So as an artist, when you hold a first hold, that means you're locked. That's what it means. So we were locked in that tour, and commitments were there from everybody. And then we were going to be out next week. We would have been starting in Dallas, I think on the 3rd. So we would have been rehearsing in Florida, all of us, Matt and John, and coming out. But the problem with commitments ahead of time is some people commit then like to later next year for other things. So we're planning on an American tour in late spring, summer. But we will have, John Evans will be there, and we have a drummer coming out, and Matt has given his blessing last night because he's committed to something a while ago. For the UK, European and American, we're gonna have a trio out.
Woo!
How important is it for you, Tori, to find space daily to do, like, piano playing and being creative and writing? Is it something that you feel like you need to do daily?
What happened, honey? Somebody's not well? Somebody's fallen down. Can we get help, please? Can we get lights? We need help. Somebody's fallen. A doctor? Somebody's raising his hand. You a doctor? Yeah.
911 needed?
999. It's 999.
Yeah, go.
That's not the issue. Somebody call an ambulance.
Tash, call an ambulance.
Has anyone called 9?
Yeah, it's happening right now.
It's in a crowd. They
Are they conscious? They're asking. Oh, honey, we're calling 999. He's stable? Johnny, Tash? They want to know if we need an ambulance. They're saying no, they don't. He's recovering. He says carry on. What's your name? You get a free ticket to the Palladium. With your daughter. Yeah, you faint too. Fainting contests.
Welcome to the Palladium.
He's okay.
He's okay.
Yes.
Nice. Fairies. Okay, so what's appropriate? Should we continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it important for you to find space daily to do something creative, or do you find yourself getting grouchy if you haven't been at the piano for a while, or would you not like that?
It goes in spurts, so I'm about to start rehearsals. Rehearsals are going to be interesting because John Evans and I are set to talk in a few days about what repertoire we want. So if you all want to put requests in, what you're hoping,
That's scary, Sean.
that is scary, but scary fun. Because we're looking at the catalog for the last 30 years. We have a new drummer. His name is Ash Sohan. He's a great British drummer, and I'm a fan. So it's going to be really always interesting to work with a new musician, but we have to begin from the beginning because he has to learn the repertoire we choose, but we can choose anything. So it's not just... So Matt knew, of course, hundreds of songs, and that meant, how do I plan a set list? But now we have to decide which songs we're going to work up. So if they're favorites, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm open.
Are you?
Yeah.
Really?
Happy worker.
Do you know, that's funny, this drummer worked with him, Trevor Horn. Funny, small world. Convenient. Yeah. The thing about that song is I really loved it because he was smoking a big fatty. No, seriously. And it had this kind of feeling to it. And Karen Benz, when she heard it, she was just loving it and grooving it. And then something happened once it went to the movie Toys, and it became all these background voices that were very different from the demo, so it was a completely different sort of tune. So it changed, so I'm hoping to get it back to what the demo was.
Reclaim it.
Reclaim it. Okay, David.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about you out there? Or do you think people have a fair idea because of how honest you are in your music?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know if I could wake up in the morning if I thought about that. I don't think about that stuff.
No.
I try not to.
Let it go.
I try not to because all we can do is be the best selves we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Try and be true. Try and, ask yourself, ask myself, is my intention the right one? Are we trying to make good art here? Are we trying to give a good show? Are we trying to do something that uplifts? And then that's all I think we can do as artists.
Yeah. In terms of your music, do you follow reviews and feedback on your albums, or do you also let that go as well?
I try and stay away. What's difficult though is, I did a thing with Waitrose, and that's one of our local shops. So I can, you know what I mean? Sometimes when you have a big press junket coming out and it's the big week, then you think, okay, I'll avoid Waitrose and I'll avoid, you just try and make sure that you're approaching it in the right way so you can keep really clear.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the upcoming tour that's coming up, you often take requests, don't you, from fans before the show? You do meet and greets and take requests for speaking on your own songs. Is there any that you find difficult to perform at the drop of a hat like that, because it might be quite personal or autobiographical? Are there ones that you have to be in a certain mental place to perform?
It's usually about the technicality of it.
Okay.
Emotionally, if I'm in a funny place and something's coming up, then maybe, but usually it's technical, that we're not able to get it in rehearsal.
Okay.
So sound check is mandatory for everybody, the crew included, and that's where we really try and work out if we can make it happen or not, as most people know. So if it doesn't get in there, it's because something wasn't working. It's not usually
it's
because...
not really an emotional level to it.
Not usually.
This is a bit of a random one, but in recent years it seems like you've made peace with Why Can't Tori Read, and that your fans have actually really embraced the album. Would you ever come up with a contemporary arrangement or a re-release of the album? You're not quite in that place.
I don't know. I think it stands the way it was. I think it needs to stand.
Okay.
But I do think we should work some songs up from it on the tour.
Would you say your music has helped you deal with your own personal life and issues and experiences? Is it kind of like your own form of exercising your demons, so to speak?
You can say demons.
Yeah.
12 disciples Jesus had. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Once I understood that art could be a way to do that instead of just being a commercial activity, that it could be something that, okay, might not get played on the radio a lot, might not be in the dentist office, might not be one of those things that is escapism, but it might be something that can change how you deal with trauma.
Is it healing for you? Do you find there's a healing there from
It gets to
processing?
It gets to healing, but some of them are really more about, like there's a song, it's called the Merry Widow version of Professional Widow. It's a live version. Woo! And I think that song, that arrangement or whatever you call it, really expresses the bones of that song in a way that the other versions didn't, because it gets to the incredible, well, I've said bloodletting before, but it really gets to this place of unbelievable frustration about how diabolical the patriarchy can be. And women can be in the patriarchy, as we all know very well. So it's about the abuse of power over people. And it's that version of the song that I think actually expressed it.
Okay. For people that are familiar with your work, Tori, it's possible to split your career into two halves, into two different sounds. I've always felt like there's a second chapter of your work that seemed to begin with Scarlet's Walk, because there seemed to be a distinctly different sound there. Was that a conscious choice, the new direction that your music went into, or was that just natural evolution in your artistry?
I think what happens is I'm trying to document a time, And after 9/11, we were traveling the country, and some of these people were there. We were on a tour, a strange little tour, and it was a very strange time for those of you who remember. A lot of acts had canceled, and we were actually doing Scarlet's Walk. We were making it happen, and then art imitated life. But while we were out there, and there was one war announced, and then there was another war brewing, and people were gathering together to exchange information. And some even told me, look, it's one thing that the music's here, but really we need to be able to exchange information because we're getting confused information. And so Scarlet's Walk really needs to reflect that particular time. And possibly certain sounds were chosen and ways of arranging the songs, because songs can be arranged in different ways. They really can. It's not always, it has to be this way, but it becomes choice, because you're trying to get into a force field. I'm trying to get the songs to a place where they will take me somewhere, and hopefully somebody else somewhere. So it's figuring out how to tap into that song and then document it and represent it about the time you're talking about. And so that's where I think each of the records are different, because then Doll Posse happened, which was a completely different kind of energy, force field, and sound than Scarlet, and definitely different than Beekeeper. But, you know, Tash was like 4 on Beekeeper, 5, and it was imperative that I keep those posse girls away from her as long as I could.
That is something incredible about your career, is actually looking back over your releases. Each album is so different from, you know, the previous. You really got a strong evolution in your sound. No record sounds the same. And that's quite a feat in itself, I think. Because it's hard not to kind of tread old ground, I think.
I'm really fortunate to work with great musicians like John Philip Chanel.
Woo!
Amazing, JPS. I've been working with him for, oh my goodness, long time now. He was on Little Earthquakes. He was involved in that, and has been really ever since. Even if he's not on every single record, his presence is there, and he's on the other end of the phone, and he's part of our family. And he's been calling Tash Pinky since she was born, so you know, he's just part of our family. And then to play with all the others, and to have Matt and John again, it was a dream. I wish we could have been in studio together, but because of the pandemic, they couldn't get over. And so we were operating on using Cornwall as the mothership. And then everything leaving from there and things coming back in, and then tarting them up and then going back out again to John Evans on the Cape, and then coming back and tarting them up and then going out to JPS and then coming back. So that was really the process.
Okay. Do you ever listen to your own music, Tori? Do you ever?
I listened to the new Amos mixes. I had to be in a room with loads and loads and loads of speakers to get the Atmos, or you think it's so weird. But anyway, they're coming out. I'm on the fence about them, but I think 80 did a great job on them. And so that's a new kind of mix that the industry's pushing on everybody. So yes, I've been listening, but once I've listened and I've sent it out, then I usually walk away from that album for a while. Yeah, I have to walk away, yeah.
Okay.
And then prepare for the tour. So then I have to start listening to, go back to 98 and figure out which choir girl tune is going to come on the tour.
And then it gives them fresh life again as well, I expect.
Hopefully, yeah. Possible.
I've heard many songwriters say they actually don't listen to a lot of other artists' music when they're creating, in case they inadvertently pick up that flavour of sound from what they're listening to.
You mean in
That-
case they steal?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Lots of stealing. Lots of lawsuits happening that I can't. It's unfortunate, but I think if you think about it, the people, and this is just my opinion, if you're writing pop songs in the 60s and early 70s, and you're writing them in 2021, there's all of that material that you have to really make sure that you are not picking up and aligned with, or you find that you're Sam Smith and your song is Tom Petty's song, and it's right there. It's the same it's the same, and you might not know it, but that's where you have to be really hyper alert. And so that's one challenge that I think songwriters are facing today, and they have to be super vigilant.
I can just imagine that it's something quite hard, and because we were just discussing how different your own albums sound from each other, it's quite amazing because your body of work isn't really comparable to anyone else. You're quite out there on your own. It's really distinct and unique.
Well, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, thanks, Fiona. I think the thing is, if you're gonna steal from yourself.
Exactly.
Because then your law fees will be much cheaper. I will tell you that I do have to tell them, because they know I give them, goss. The thing is, what I think is not so good in our industry is when, a song is exactly like somebody else's song, and that's unfortunate and maybe a bit naughty, maybe unknown, but then when the management or the lawyers of the original songwriter want a cut of the artist's whole album, not just the song, and that happens. It does happen with some of your favorite bands and favorite artists that this can happen to, and it can be it's a really difficult thing, but sometimes I just want you guys to think about how behind the curtain, unfortunately, you have the money people who don't have the morality and can't say, no, we're only gonna take from the song that stole this song from the 90s. And then this female artist will only have to pay for that song, not the whole goddamn mothership.
Looking back over your body of work, Tori, is there 3 albums that you would say, if somebody asked you what are your personal favourites, or that might represent who you are as an artist? If someone asked you to pick 3.
Well, it's tricky, Fiona, because it's like, it's hard to be subjective. It's like judging, not your kids, but it is judging maybe your best friends. And that's really hard because each one offers something. They might not be as, look at me, but they serve a purpose. And that's why some don't get as much love as others. I'm aware of that. And some get love much, much later on. But Beekeeper has had a really tough go. People have been a bit tough on her. But maybe we'll get some songs out on tour and get them grooving out there.
Do you feel protective of your songs or albums that you don't feel like get the recognition they deserve? Does it,
Well, sometimes the songs are protective, I think, of me, because they know who they are more than I do. There's this song called Honey, which they know about. And I put this song on the record. I did not put this song on the record. See, that's the problem.
You got kicked off a master.
Yes, by this person. And so I replaced it with, I've had a blank, what's it called? Yeah, the wrong band. So the wrong band and I've had a very interesting relationship because it's not her fault, it's my fault that I listened to somebody in the room who made a suggestion. I had the whole thing figured out after weeks. You know, you live with it for weeks. I was riding in the desert in a truck, listening to it. I knew where Honey should sit. And then somebody made a comment in the room. And it's not that there isn't a great comment that gets made in the room. Honestly, people come in the room, and a T-boy can come in the room and just go, you know, Tori, I think da-da-da-da, and I'm like, I think you're right. Oh my God, here's a bonus. Take a holiday. So that can happen, but it's knowing when to go, okay, thank you. Thanks very much. And then you revisit, as an artist, you revisit, why did I make that decision? And is it the right decision?
So would you say that's the biggest one that nibbles away at you, that particular one with Honey? Is that?
And then how I treated the wrong band. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Because I have to, you know, we need to bring them both in.
Woo!
I think bring them both in.
Woo!
You're quite a prolific artist, and you've been, you know, like regularly productive through the years. So, I mean, do you find it quite hard to relax? Or are you always busy and keeping yourself working on the next project? Do you find it hard to actually let go and chill out at home, and are you quite busy-minded with it?
I like relaxing. Who doesn't? No, I mean, but still, what I'm aware of that they're aware of is we have a tour coming. We haven't been out on tour on the Tori tour since 2017. So a lot of thought, and I call it chopping wood, needs to happen. Mm-hmm. A lot of playing needs to happen. A lot of working with musicians and sound needs to happen in order to deliver something that I think is worthy of people's time and coming to a show. So that I know that's about to happen. So the idea of relaxing is kind of in the future.
Right. I just recalled an interview with the producer Rodney Jerkins, I think it was, and he said that whenever he was chilling out at home or just relaxing, he'd always be thinking, oh, right now I could be writing a brilliant song and one could be getting away from me in a way. So it just intrigued me to see how you felt.
A lot of times though, just watching something, a documentary or whatever it is, or making food, going to Borough Market, one of my favorite vegetable markets if you get a chance to go, and then going home and making some magic mushroom thingy. Sorry, I didn't mean the drugs. Yeah, I know. But yeah, in doing that, you can get a song. See, in the doing, I think in the doing and in observing and being really kind of present with where you are, then you start noticing things.
Planting seeds.
And you're alive as a writer. So when I'm walking through Borough Market, there's this amazing Columbia coffee. You've got to find it. It is going to keep you up for 3 hours if you're jet lagging. It's a little stall in Borough Market, other side of the river. You'll find it. And it's just, and they do oat milk and everything, so you're fine. But if you walk around, I'm telling you, you're going to start hearing things. You will, seeing things. There's food from all over the world. There's people from all over the world. And all of a sudden, you get out your little pen and paper, your phone, you start, singing in the corner. And somebody's like, who's that weird lady in the parade singing in the corner?
It's interesting you say that, because I think I've heard you before mention that you get a lot of inspiration from people and places around you. But how do you feel knowing that quite a lot in your lyrics, people presume that it's all about your own personal experience, and they kind of apply the experiences you're writing about to you and think that it must be about you? I'm guessing it's not everything you write is from your own life, and it is from others. So how do you feel about other people presuming they know something about you that's not necessarily the case? Does it bother you, or doesn't it enter your head?
I don't think I think about it.
Yeah.
Because I find you have to be with the songs, you have to frame them, you have to figure out how's the best way to tell this story, even if in the song your protagonist self is not the meanie, but I know that maybe I was the meanie, but I decide that I'm gonna make him the meanie. I'm sorry guys, but sometimes that's just as a songwriter decides, no, I'm gonna tell this story. But Waitress, different. So some songs you decide, okay, I'm gonna take a different position here, and it's more to what really happened. I did have those feelings. I did want to kill a waitress. And so have you.
I want to know what she did.
And so then the song, then you're truer. But sometimes you do, it has happened, but you decide singing from this character's point of view won't tell the story as well as if I sing it from
Different
this,
perspective.
her point of view.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to ask one more question. I think they were going to take some from the audience. How do you deal with it when you feel burned out creatively, when you feel like I'm just not in the place, it doesn't feel like it's working? You know, what's your process to get back on track? Because I do recall you saying you don't really believe in writer's block. So, I mean, do you just keep pushing through it? Do you take time out? If it's not working, what's your go-to?
I think I've said I don't feed the monster of writer's block because it can be a monster. And I've known people who can feed that monster to a point of hysteria and then apathy and then guilt and then you, oh my God, I feel like I'm in a Christian service. And so it seems more like, look at Mother Earth. Follow her as our example. Her cycles. Tomorrow night, we enter a new cycle for Wicca. And how wonderful that we move into this, even though some of us, our end of year is until December 31st. It's different for different people. Mm-hmm. And I look at it as maybe this is a time, whatever that time is, when I'm not finding the writing is as fruitful as I want it to be. That it's time to intake, it's time to read, it's time to listen, it's time to be open to other artists and other people and their works and their thoughts. And then you begin to collect, like seeds that you're gonna plant in a couple months. You're just gonna start collecting them and then building them in your journals or your art books or whatever it is, and finding your 2-bar phrases, and you have maybe hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 2-bar phrases that you've put down. And the trick though is then having a system, and this is key, is having a system to go back through all of them. Because if you've notated all these seeds and you don't know how to find them, that's such a drag, you know? Then you have lost these jewels, these little gems. So it's really important to figure out a system that works for you, how to find these observations that you're hearing or playing or reading about.
Okay. Thanks so much, Tori, for that.
Fiona, you've been great. Thank you.
I think a lot of your fans are going to have some questions, so I don't know.
Almost afraid to ask, but if you've got a question, put your hand up, please. Henry, if you could pick some people from that side and get them to queue there. Yeah. I'm going to start with some of the people who were here since 9 a.m. I think that's only fair.
7:30.
In the rain.
Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Thank you so much for hosting that tonight. It really means a lot. I wanted to ask a question that you kind of touched on already about that topic, about your songwriting process. because you have such a vast body of work, and obviously your songs throughout the years have touched on many topics and went into like many emotions. So how different it is when you write from emotion, be it anger, grief, or even hope, or when you are constructing a song that you purposely want to tell some kind of a story. I'm not sure if my question is clear.
It's a good question. So, if you're, when you're not angry, just say, if you're in your life as a musician building your chord vocabulary, and you're building your rhythm vocabulary, and you're listening to other rhythms and chordal progressions, whether it's over the last 400 years, and you're open to that, and you're discovering things all the time, then what you're doing is you've got this, we're gonna take it here, you've got this sonic greenhouse that you, whatever emotion you're in, you can tap into these ingredients because you've been working on them when the emotion isn't there. So when I talk about chop wood, carry water, and Fiona, when you ask about the times when, you know, the sparkle dust from the muses is not there, and Fiona's a great writer and writes horror. So you know when those moments feel like I've got nothing. But if we're doing our work, because an artist, part of our work is gathering these potential, I guess, sonic ingredients, so that when you do have that emotion and you do step into it, then my hands can go. I don't always have to really think about it because we've been working on it for 2 years, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you very much.
Gonna go over to this gentleman on the side over here. You can see him talking.
Hello, so we're talking to you from behind, I think. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you. I've been a fan for 14 years. I've never had the chance to meet you or anything, but I found your music at a very difficult point in my life, and the energy that you've provided me, and I think everyone in the room, is invaluable. So thank you very much for that.
What is your name?
Quentin.
Hi, Quentin.
Hello. And then my question, obviously kind of, I don't think anyone's unaware that we've all been through this crazy, almost once in a lifetime collective experience of COVID, and we're still going through it. And obviously the strangest thing about it is that it's actually an incredibly individualistic experience with lockdown and everything. And so I hope everyone here is doing well, but I just also wanted to ask, how are you? Are you doing okay?
Oh, Quentin, that's very nice. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm very nervous.
Okay, well, you did something really beautiful. You asked how everybody was. So, big heart. I think that's what we need to do, is ask each other how we are.
Yeah, I know.
How are you guys? Yeah. Me too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Quentin.
Thank you, Quentin. We got someone at the back here. How do I decide? Let me go for you.
Hi. Hi. I was thinking about how you prepare for a tour in terms of when you're gathering your songs together, and you obviously you gather girls as you're traveling, but you go out on the road with a handful of songs to start off with. And over the years, your songs have had this like evolution live. Do you go back to the album? Do you go back to like bootleg? Do you have a backlog of bootlegs that you're going to release to us at some point? Or is it like muscle memory?
Okay. So just so you know, Mark is the keeper of all the recordings. Yeah. Yeah, you can mug him. The thing is, I think we listen to all. We have to listen to the live recordings as well as the albums themselves, and then decide what arrangements and what changes to work with. What's going to be tricky this time, I'll be honest, is deciding what songs are we going to use for the first. Well, what's going to make it to Berlin? Because then we can build from there. So my philosophy is you have 2 shows in the can, in the treasury, I should say. And once you have those 2 shows, then you can be building on those shows. But that's a lot to work up on a 14-day rehearsal with a load in, load out included. So it's kind of figuring those things out without being too methodical, because you want it to be magical at the same time. You need a mixture of rhythms and all those kinds of things, tempos. So it's deciding who comes forward. And that's a little tricky because I'm trying to make a decision 2.5 months out on what's going to be right for the first show after 4 years in Berlin. You know, I'm trying to project. So I am opening the sites to people who have Berlin wish lists.
Cool, we're going to go back over to this microphone on this side. You're going to go down to that.
I'll just try to use
Project.
the
He'll project.
Got a big voice. So yes, I'll be as loud as I can. Obviously on the new album, which of the girls were probably hardest to tame or translate, and which was the easiest?
Well, I think, let's see. Believe it or not, okay, after I heard some drill and bass music, I got really excited. And then circumstances happened that Tash had nightmares about the bats that were really in the house. So I decided, I was listening to the drill and bass music that Oliver had been playing me. And I thought, okay, I'm really inspired by that. And I haven't really worked with that before. But if I could write a story, a lullaby type thing with this kind of, in this genre, then that could be an interesting pairing. And what I got back from Matt and John was, you try playing this for 5.5 minutes at our age, live on stage. We're gonna need fucking oxygen tank. So I think that came together quite easily, but I don't know how we're gonna do it live.
You can do it. Bring Oliver.
Bring Oliver. He wanted to know which songs on the new record came together more easily and which were more difficult. I think getting Swim to New York State right was tricky. Oh, I had to go to the Cornish coast way down to get it. So we were shooting the visuals and I had the first line. I had that. The visuals in Angizel Beach and Bossy Gran. So it sounds like your bossy gran, but it's not. It's Igran, I think, from Arthur's mother. Anyway, it's a cliff. And so traversing all that for, I don't know, as long as we did, a day and a half, it was quite moving because getting to that rock pool, Layla and she put me in a wetsuit and she surfs a lot with her wife, Robin. So she got me over that scary patch. We were up to our neck in water with hair on top and she had my gown tied around her head.
Oh my God.
And here she is pulling me across the rocks and going, okay, T, first thing, you have to christen your wetsuit. And I thought, no. And she said, it's freezing. That's what we know how to do down here in Cornwall. So anyway, we warmed up a little bit, got across, but it was really up to here, and then changed, and she's hiding behind the rocks in her wetsuit. And then the shots take place. But I have to tell you, being in that pool, having that journey with her, she was getting married the next day to Robin at the office, and then they were going to have a reception 3 weeks later in celebration. And she said, I feel like this is my hen night. And we just had this moment there on that beach with our visual team too, and that and Addition of Light Divided, those two songs were written really after having that pilgrimage to Nanjizzle and Bossy Ground.
Questions? This side? Oh, you're speedy. You're speedy, my friend.
Thank you. Hi, Tori. My daughter is 12 years old. Her name is Layla, and she's really into your stuff because I'm similar age to you, and so I grew up listening to your stuff. But basically, I'm just wondering whether or not you, when you were writing your songs, so she likes Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish, and when you're writing your songs, is that in your mind at all about the audience that you have, and that the fact that you do have a younger audience as well, you know, as in my daughter who loves your stuff in the same way that I used to and still do?
I have to be careful not to chase it. I think that really to be genuine, I just stay with what I'm observing. And sometimes what I'm observing is coming from my 29-year-old niece. Sometimes it's coming from Tash, who's 21. So sometimes it's coming from one of my dear friends, is called Laura, and her sons are Charlie and George, and they're 6 and 4. And so sometimes they're the little puddle jumpers that were in Christmastide. They puddle jump. And I was watching them play puddle jump. And so they entered a song in that way. So if I'm just observing people at different times in their life, then hopefully it resonates with different people at different times in their life.
Great. We're going to jump back over to this microphone on this side. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tori.
Hey.
Sorry, I apologise because it's probably going to be a bit personal for you, but I also lost my mother a few years ago. And despite the grief, which is always with us and never goes away, one of the kind of weird, vulnerable, scary things I realised was that I was now the matriarch of the family. I was the top. And I really felt listening to your new album that you kind of have donned that cloak of responsibility as well, and that I could hear the grief in it as well, but it felt the empowerment was there as well. Would you agree with that, and would you say that's what sort of came through in the album?
I agree with you. I think it can be overwhelming on some days because of the responsibility. I think people feel that when you know, oh, I really have to not know the answers to everything because we can't, but to be strong sometimes for the ones coming up who are looking to us. But like your mother, Mary had big shoes to, she was just, her love was so big. And sometimes I find that really tricky. I don't know how you feel, but I find that level of compassion, which was so huge. And some people here met Mary and knew when she looked in your eyes, she really looked at you. She saw you. And it wasn't an act. So having that off the table has been a real challenge, and then trying to pass that on, because that was unique to her, and I'm sure your mother had unique qualities to her as well. So the challenge is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? See, is your friend pointed to you?
I'll get the microphone up here.
Hey Tori.
Hi.
First of all, just wanted to say that we've got a shared friend, Peter LaMonica, your hairdresser. So,
I just saw him 4 hours ago.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He said you were on your way. So thanks I should thank him for you looking so great. I've been a fan since I was 16, 30 odd years, so thank you for that. But you talk about your songwriting and what it means to you with all the muses. How do you feel when you hear other people covering your songs?
I love it. I really love it. It's the best compliment that a songwriter can get is when somebody covers you, because it means that they relate to the song. So yeah, I love all kinds of versions. I'm open to the kazoo choir, truly. And heavy metal, hint, hint.
All right, we're going to jump back over to this side. Henry, do you have something ready?
Hi Tori, thanks very much for everything. I've been a fan since 1994. But anyway, your music has gotten me through a lot of difficult times, including the lockdown. And unfortunately, during the lockdown, I was also diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. But on the other side of it now. But your music got me through it, and it wasn't just the lockdown. But my question to you is: during lockdown and the pandemic, what sort of music were you listening to? You and the family, perhaps. What got you through it? Thanks.
Well, I had a trip down memory lane and did do my revision of the 60s, almost all of the 60s, because being a child then, I needed to find something childlike, because the news that we were all getting, whether it was the endlessness of the lockdown or everything else that was happening. So I needed to find a magical place, and 60s music does take me there. It's like a little sonic ship. So I listened to so much 60s music and early 70s music, and discovered things that I had forgotten about. And boy, I love those records. And then at the same time, Oliver was around for 5 months, bless him. And he was playing music every night. So he's studying jazz at Guildhall here in London, and was. So we would hear things he was studying, so jazz, as well as music he was discovering from the 90s, like drill and bass, and all his favorite things. So that was kind of fun.
Cheers. Thanks, Tori.
And there's some questions up here of this lot.
Hi, Tori. Thank you for having us. I have a quick statement followed by a quick question. I met you for the first time about 20 years ago, and some of the things you said to me helped me on my own career path, which is not musically inclined, but it's creative. And the things you said to me actually put me on the straight and narrow to my own present career, which is creative. And so I'm sure a lot of other people, some of the things you say in passing have such an impact that I think we can all appreciate. And less selfishly, on that note, I would like to think, as a creative, I'm always trying to look forward. And part of that is also looking back, and you helped me look back a lot. And I had a million questions for you, but I think this is the one that's standing out. And I know you've just released a new album, which we love, but when you're looking forward to the next thing, does that include like the half-made stuff that never was realized, or is it like, okay, that's what was, and I'm going to like put on a new set of shoes or whatever and go to the next thing? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It wasn't that long ago that I left those songs behind. So it's a little bit of a, what do you call it? A little chill in the air. But there's pragmatism as well, because choices needed to be made. So I think I'm moving forward. I know they're there, and I know that they were part of getting me to where I needed to be. But energetically, it's not that structurally they were completely flawed. They might have had a couple problems that we could have worked out, I think, if we had the time really and hammered it out as a band. But I think it's more about the energy, and the energy was more reflective of what America, the energy after the election in 2020, like a month later. And I think some of the Brits know what that was because you couldn't escape it, but I just couldn't stay there anymore. I found it really toxic. So I needed to get away from that. And as Sandy Bernhardt and I had this conversation the other day for her radio show, she said she realized she had anger about certain things and couldn't believe what was happening, that people were willing to torch democracy to the ground, that were our elected leaders. But she realized she had to, she said, shed that skin. She had to shed it. Like the gorgeous snake she is. And we're snakes together, the two of us.
Any other questions down the front here?
Hello, sorry. Hi Tori, sorry. I just wondered, we've all kind of had to face a bit of mortality the past year or so. If you died today, would you be a happy phantom? Sorry, I had to.
Well, maybe I should be, because I need to be really grateful. I've really experienced a lot of love. I've experienced a lot of love from a lot of people. I would miss, like everybody, you'd miss being here on planet Earth, because I think it's probably the coolest place to be. I have a feeling, even if there are worlds out there, universes, and I don't have that kind of brain, but I really want to make Earth work as long as I can, although I know we all have our time to, what do they say, cross over. There's a time when it's time to cross over. I think, Beanie died in a very, she had a terrible, terrible illness, and she had a lot of courage. And I think she went out as a gracious, incredible soul. And she had to make a choice because of this cruel illness. And yet it was shocking to her nephew, who is Tommy, who has had to spend the last couple years dealing with the loss of his aunt, one of my great friends, who's been such an inspiration. And she died young in our eyes. My mom, bless her, she died and had lived a full life. So I think when we lose people, and it happened quite quickly, the illness, and I think we're still trying to process that. But the way that she chose to leave, because it was hospice, and she was lucid and conscious, it's the bravest thing I've ever witnessed in my life. So blessings to Beanie, wherever you are. Rock on, sister.
I think it's never too early to start chasing your metaphorical nuns.
Say that again.
It's never too early to start chasing your metaphorical nuns then.
Oh, never too early. Love a nun biscuit.
Thank you, Tori.
All right, I think we've got time for one more. This gentleman, you had your hand up just before. You want to ask a question? You were here for a while, so.
Hi, Tori.
Hi.
I think this is going to kill the vibe, the question, because it's a technical one. I was wondering, what was it like recording virtually with the guys this time around, not being able to be in the studio together? And that's the question.
Well, okay, aside from the shenanigans, which I always love with the guys, because there's noshing, you know, there's good food, there's drinks, there's all that. But usually in a very disciplined way. So that doesn't happen till dinner time. And then we start carving in the morning, and we work through things together. I missed that. I missed us jamming, because in the jamming, there's something really, oh God, it's just so incredibly collaborative, and it's changing before your eyes and ears. And so everybody's working off of each other. And that part of the process we didn't have. But what we did have, as Matt put it, he got to get the keyboard demo first and all by himself. So he then put the DNA down of where he thought the rhythm language should go. So when he heard Speaking of Trees, he's like on the phone with me and Mark going, tree language, tree speaking, they have to talk. They have a language, let's find it through the drums. Fuck the bass. So the bass always had to follow. But then when he hears what John's doing on Spies, is what the fuck? Why didn't I know about that? So that's one of those things. And then it's like, reggae, really? 29 years, Evans? You take it to the police? So those things were happening, and as JPS says, he was last. So he says, I know everything. So he felt like the great wizard, because in the end, he knew everybody's little tricks, what people were doing, even some BVs he might have had, and so then he does his orchestrations around all the information. So, as you can see, some people had less information, but made that footprint first, that sonic footprint, and then everybody had to follow that person's footprint. So that was kind of a game. It was kind of fun. It's like, okay, what am I gonna get from America today when I wake up? So that's how it worked.
Thank you.
I wanna thank Fiona again, everybody. Guys, see you out there. David, how are you feeling?
I'm alive.
Yeah, you're alive. Okay.
Hospital.
Hospital yesterday. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. Much love. Love you. See you out there, guys.
Thank you guys. You'll just take a seat, give us 10 minutes. We've got the actor leave the building, and then we'll let you guys out.